nobody understood what I was doing from home. Nobody understood this business. They thought I was just sitting at the table making fun little paper crafts and just having fun. Nobody understood any part of anything. And so I was already getting talked about through town. Like, what is she doing? Like, she left that job and it doesn't make
And
any sense.
now,
And then now all of a sudden he, who has one of the best jobs in town, is coming home with her. Like, are they crazy?
hey guys, welcome to the Something New show where we like to learn how to live a life worth celebrating. And today we are in my home with one of my closest friends, Brooke Riley. And I cannot wait for you to enjoy this episode with us because we're going to dive deep into entrepreneurship, marriage, family, and friendship. And so if you are a working mom or a working husband and you're like, hey, what is it like to be in this capacity? We're going to get real today and
Yes.
talk about those things and how cool to
Mm,
do it in person.
I love this. I'm
So
so
thank you,
excited.
Brooke, for being
Yes.
here in our
Oh,
home. We just had a good couple of days together with our families.
we did.
We went whitewater rafting yesterday. We just are enjoying Colorado
I
summer,
know. Hiking, all the fun
all the
things.
fun things.
Colorado's
So
beautiful.
many people probably do know who you are, but for those of us that don't,
Okay.
could you just start out by telling just there's so many things that you do, kind of like me when people say, "What do you do, Mindy?" I'm like, "Well, I do a lot of things."
Yeah.
But how could you explain just, the variety of things that you do? And then
Okay.
we'll get to the story of how it all started.
Yeah, okay. Super. So like she said, my name's Brooke. I own Refabbed and Refab Boutique. And Refabbed is a DIY decorating website and kind of social media influence, blog, social channels, and it's just where I inspire people to live a creative life. That's how I like to kind of explain that. It's not just DIY, it's not decorating, it's just living creatively, however that looks. I just like to share my journey with my people.
Yeah.
And so through that, which is where it all started, ended up having a coaching program where I teach entrepreneurs how to grow in the online space for profit, and then an online boutique where I sell women's clothing and accessories, and we go live. Like, live selling is like our main format, so like we're really dialed in on that and like the customer experience and relationships. So all of those things: DIY, decorating, clothing,
Any
teaching, all the fun things. So I just
so
kind of do a lot of different things.
It's so cool, and you can follow along on all your
Yes.
socials when you go to. Tell us really quick, where can we follow you along?
If you just type in Refabbed, RE-FABBED, you're gonna see Refab by Brooke Riley, Refab Boutique. It's all the things.
All
Just
the
follow
things.
all the things.
All the
Yes.
things. Okay, great. Well, I remember a story that you told me about years ago. You were working, a good job in your town. You're in
Mhm.
a small town in Kentucky. You were working a good job, but you started to dream of more.
Mhm.
And I'd love to hear for those moms out there that are working a job that maybe they aren't passionate about, but they're thankful for.
Yeah.
What kind of evolved into you saying, I want to start a business?
Okay, so this is I like telling this story because I think it'll hit home with a lot of people. Um, but it's not probably what a lot of people would think. I live in rural Western Kentucky, a small town. Moved there when me and my husband got married. That's where he's from. I didn't know anybody at all except for his family, and really had not known them very long. So started right out of college working for an electric company. Electric co-op, which if you're in small rural America, then that's like the cream of the crop jobs. Like, everybody wants to be at a co-op, like for water, electric, some kind of utility. And so there was a job opening. I applied. I did the interview. I got the job, which was a huge deal. And started working there. I started at the front counter and was making like $8 an hour, like
Hmm.
just very minimal. And was dealing with customer service, all that kind of stuff. And it was fine. I was part time. I was, just get my foot in the door. Ended up really loving it and moved up to the back room, where you start to do like bigger stuff. And it just eventually just kind of started progressing through, not the ranks, but just kind of moving up. Was there 9 years before I quit. But through that process of being at the electric company, um, what started as one goal, and I have to tell this part because this plays a huge role in how everything transpired, and I think it's really important to know. When I got that job there, and I tell this openly because it's just the truth and it's the way it is and it's part of my story. My degree is in communications, public relations, and organizational communication. So when I got on there, they had a communications director job that was not available, but the person was going to be retiring in the near future. They didn't know exactly when. And so he said, "You're perfect for this job. This is really why we want you kind of getting your foot in the door because we really want you for this." I had no experience. Obviously, I just graduated college, so they knew that. I get on. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm here because I'm moving into this role, this communications director role. And about a year and a half in, she retires or she announces her retirement. And I'm like, okay, I'm on vacation and I call in and I'm like, I'm interested in that job. And they're like, okay, so come interview like everybody else. And I'm like, okay. So I go into that interview when it was time and I was so confident. And one of the first things they said to me, or that one of them said to me, was, "Who's going to ever take you serious walking into a room, this young, cute girl?"
Lovely girl.
Yeah, like, who's going to ever take you serious for a job like this? And I was just like, what? Like,
Ouch.
and I was like, oh my gosh. And so that at that point, it just went downhill from there. And I was like, I just didn't understand. It felt like a slap in the face. It felt like, oh my gosh, like, why am I here? Like, I knew it was over. I got out of the interview, called my mom crying, like, just took a little break from work to go drive around and was just like, I don't understand because I knew I didn't get the job. Like, there was no question. Like, it was very clear they never intended for me to get that job. And I didn't. But he was like, to make you feel better, you were sixth on our list. And I was like, oh, well, that's amazing. I was sixth,
Woohoo!
And so I have to tell that part, even though, because a lot of times your biggest no in life turns into your biggest yes later. And that's what happened with me. And that's where God started shifting my mindset into what would later be. And if that part of the story had not happened, I would have never gotten to the point later where I could see his hand moving me here. So, that happened. I didn't get the job. I'm like, I'm not wanting to be like a meter girl. Like, I wanted to do what I went to school for. That was like more of my passion. But I was like, I've got a really good job. I work with some great people. I'm going to just keep, I'll probably retire from here. This will be a great place, good pay, 2 retirements, everything you could want in rural America. And so I just kept working, moving along through the ranks. Struggled with infertility, miscarriage, like a lot of things through those years that I was there. God was just really shaking a lot of things that I'm like, whoo, I wasn't expecting to go through all this. And at the end, when I'd been there almost 9 years, I had 2 kids finally. Like, God had blessed us with 2 children. They were like 1 and 2, or just a little under 1 and close to 2. I can't remember exactly. They were very, very young at the time that all this started transpiring, that I started hearing God like saying, I've got something more for you. I was in the high bill complaint department at the time. So I was living my best life of angry customers all day, every day, cussing me out. Just, it was one of those things that I would pull into the driveway at work and I'd be like, God, just let me show your grace today. Like, just let me have a good attitude. And after phone call number 2, it was over. I was like, oh my gosh, it's just so taxing on me emotionally. And I was leaving home at 6 a.m. to get to work by 7 a.m. so that I could take the kids, drop them off at 6:15, wheel in at 7:02, come deal with high bills all day, and the stress level was just like weighing on me. I would work late. I was not getting any time with my family, and it was like I've prayed for this family all these years. Like, went through 4 years of infertility, miscarriage, all the things we went through. And I finally have this family. I can't enjoy them. I'm stressed to the max. I'm overwhelmed. I'm burnt out. And I'm a hamster on a wheel. I can't be a wife or a mom the way I want to be. And at that point, I was feeling so much pressure. And what happened was I had what they thought was a stroke at the time at work. And I was taken to the ER. They put me through all these tests, gave me the TP shot for stroke patients because at the time they truly thought I had a stroke. Put me on a helicopter to the neuro ICU at Vanderbilt and underwent a lot of just tests and stuff. Long story short, and all this is so important. I know it's kind of long, but like it plays such a vital role in every single part of my journey. And so I just feel like it's important to share. But um, went through all that, all those tests. Turns out I had like a mini stroke, which is not that uncommon, but the way that my brain, what my neurosurgeon was saying, the way my brain reacts to stress mimics a stroke. I lose all cognitive ability. Like that's what happened to me that got me there. I lost all cognitive ability, couldn't talk, couldn't write, couldn't do anything. I was stuttering. And so it was literally mimicking all of that. And so I'd never experienced that. They didn't know what was going on. So of course it scared everybody. And so I get there and I start getting better. Everything starts, leveling out. I come home with all these heart monitors. We found a few heart things that was going on that I would have never known had I not went through that because we just never have come
Right.
up. And I come back home and I'm having to just settle in for a couple weeks outside of work. My amazing coworkers gave me time because I was out of time because I just had two kids, so I had zero sick time. They donated it to me for me to be able to be home. And in those silent moments where I could make sentences, but I was very delayed. I was very stuttering, like my mind was taking a while to start processing things again. So, in my moments of quiet and downtime, he was speaking to me and he's like, "This is not what I have for you. Like, I have more for you." And I could just hear it so vividly in my mind. And he's like, "Brooke, it's taken me getting you to this point for you to finally see that I don't want you there. I have plans for you. I have something different." And I remember hearing it, but like, but what? Like, I have nothing to offer. I have nothing that I can do. That was my mindset. And I think so many women can probably relate to that because maybe they do feel the pull that there's something more, but we shortchange ourselves so often, being like, but I have nothing to give, but I'm nobody, I'm not enough. And I was experiencing all those thoughts, but I was like, but I want to know what it is. Show me what it is you have for me because this is not what I want. And this is not what I signed up for. And I was 29 years old. I'm 41 now at the time we're filming this. And so I went back to work. Once I finally got better, I was wearing heart monitors hanging off of me everywhere. And I was just like, I went back straight into the stress, straight back into the everything. And I was like, I cannot do this. And it was just a few months in that God was like, Brooke, the things you've done naturally your whole life, that is your gift. Like you're a natural decorator, you're a natural at words, at writing. Like I could always write, like so much better than I could speak. And he's like, you have all these things that you are so good at that you just think, well, that's just something I do, but those are your gifts and I want to use those. And I was starting to see this kind of clearly. And I would always like paint furniture, fix it up, change something, make something old new again, go to the thrift store, paint a frame and fix it up. And doing things on a budget because, we were living paycheck to paycheck. It a lot of times doesn't matter how good your job is, you're still like everything's expensive. And, it was just like I was just doing what had to be done. And I started to realize I'm like, I'm doing some really cool stuff that not everybody can do or not everybody knows how. And I was like, I'd heard about blogging but didn't read blogs, didn't even know what a blog was. But I started looking into it and I'm like, I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to start writing about all this that I'm doing. I'm going to start sharing stories about this piece of furniture that I gave new life and share stories around that. And I'm going to start sharing it. And so I kind of started doing that on my personal page on Facebook, just sharing it with some friends and got really good feedback. And a dear friend of mine who actually had a blog sent me a message one day and she said, "This is," and we weren't super good friends at that point. I just knew her pretty decent, but we were more acquaintances. She's like, this is something you need to be doing, like, for a living.
Like go all in.
And I was like, had never thought of that, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I was like, I'm gonna start a blog. And I told Brandon, I said, I'm gonna start a blog. He's like, what is that? And I was like, I don't really know, but you can make some money with it. I do know that. And I don't know how, but I knew nothing. And so I started, and I just started writing, and I started doing that, and figuring it out as I went, staying up all night, staying up literally, you know me. I go to bed early. I'm a early to bed, early to rise. And I was already early to rise, but I had to stop going to bed early. I had to stay up all night to figure this out because I was still working full time and two young kids and a husband. And so I started doing that and figuring out every single thing that I needed to do, researching, Googling, reading, talking to people, figuring out how to do this. And I just started doing it. And I started telling the people at my work, I'm like, I started a blog. I'd love for you to read it. I started sharing it on Facebook. I started my Facebook page with 0 followers. I started my blog, 0 readers, and I started trying to grow it at the same time and getting it out there to the world. And within my first month, I was on Good Housekeeping. Like they had put one of my blogs on Good Housekeeping
Incredible.
publication online. And I'm like, even though that did nothing for me, like really, like it's not, it was just that God wink that He's like, look, if I'm going to do this for you now, just imagine what I can do for you later. And within 6 months, me and Brandon, through a lot of prayer and consideration and no money, I wasn't making money. I think that's very
Real.
important to know.
Yep, it's very realistic.
Very realistic because it's a long game, and
Mhm.
business is a long game, and you
Oh,
don't just
I
start and you're
went my
suddenly
first 4
profiting.
yeah, I went my first 4 years without a
Yes.
paycheck.
Mine was at least 3.5, so it was very close, maybe even 4. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, that's such a good number for people to be like, "Wait."
Yes.
And also it's a good thing for people to see when we're here on this side doing okay now. It's like but
You don't start there.
you don't start there. And some people want the result part, but I'm like, are you willing to have the 4 years of no pay and
And
honestly
extreme
the
consistency.
18 years of
Oh,
consistency
yeah.
and still the hard
Absolutely.
times? And I'm just saying it's amazing to say like there's very small percentage that push through
Very
because
small.
it's very hard to keep going when there's not a reward.
You're exactly right. It's
So
so hard.
anyways,
There's
keep
nothing
going.
easy about it. But when you are where you're supposed to be and you're walking in your purpose and your
Yeah, you're
passion
like
and your
passion.
calling, then you just keep going because there's no other choice. Like
Yep.
that is your, it just
It's gonna
fuels
work.
you.
You're
Yeah,
like,
it's
it's
like,
gonna
well,
work.
this is gonna work because I'm gonna make it work, and you know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, so you know it's coming.
Correct.
And so after about 6 months, and like I said, prayerful consideration of knowing that we were dropping one full income, which was mine, 2 retirements, everything. And at that time, it was good money, very good money, especially for what that area paid. And our cost of living was low. So, I mean, we were doing good, but it wasn't where I was supposed to be. And it was more and more clear every single day. And so we decided I would come home, I would be mom, I would get to be present, I would get to enjoy my kids, like really, truly enjoy them all through the day. And I could build the business and see where it went. And I had big dreams and hopes for it. I did not know what that was going to look like, neither did Brandon. But we just had faith that, like, this is our next step and we'll see what happens. And I'm going to go all in with family and the business and just see what happens. So we started relying on Brandon's income. We dropped down to one. We made sacrifices. We figured out how to make that work. And that was in 2015 that all of that started, that the business started. So we're 10 years in now because it's 2025. So that was in April of 2015. December 31st of 2015 was my last day at the electric company. And the new year was a brand new start. And, it honestly, God just blessed it. I worked every single day during nap time. I was present with the kids. And then when they were taking a nap or when they were doing whatever, something different, I was working. I was staying up all night trying to make it, trying to make
And
it
the
work,
first income you made was through the blogging, through
Yes.
ads and
Yes,
people
the
wanting to.
blog was the first part of the business. That was the only business was the blog. And of course you make money off of traffic to your blog, but it takes a lot of traffic to make money. And you've got to have consistent traffic for a consistent period of time before you're eligible for a lot of ad networks that will actually pay you anything substantial. So it's always so funny when I tell people my first income for this blog, I called Brandon because I noticed on Google AdSense, because I couldn't be on any other platform ad network because I wasn't having enough page views. And I was just getting a few because I was starting from zero. Like everybody always has to understand, like you're starting from zero. Everybody starts at zero. Nobody starts as like, I'll take the package with 50,000 followers and this and that. Like we wish, but that's not how it works. And so I called Brandon. I'm like, I've made some money on my blog. I was so excited. And he's like, Really? You made some money? This was like 3 months in. I said, Yes. He said, How much? I said, 6 cents. And he was like, A nickel and a penny? I was like, Yes. He's like, Really? He's like, Wow. Like, I mean, he was like, Whoa, and I was like, No, but it's real money. Like, I can tell it's going to be something one day. And like, obviously it was, but it's so funny to look back and I'm like, I need to write a book one day called Nickel and a Penny because I just feel like that time was so pivotal because
Because you
so
went
many,
from doing it for just for nothing
yeah, for
to
nothing. And
like
finally,
somebody paid to see your stuff.
finally, there was enough people that had been on there that it generated a little bit of income. And I was just like, those
You just
little
needed
God winks
something.
were what you need. You just need those little, like the good
Just a
housekeeping, just
confirmation that
little
somebody wants
confirmations.
your service.
Yes, I was like, this is going to work. I just knew it.
Yeah.
And so that was just an exciting thing. And it's so funny because he got excited. And then I told him 6 cents. And he was like, Oh, that's amazing, Brooke. And I was like, Yes, it is. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, and people fell in love with you because I think one of the other unique things you did was you started to go live.
I did.
And that
Yes.
is a very pivotal moment in your business on Facebook, wouldn't
That
you say?
was, oh, yeah, definitely. So in 2015, when it started, there was no such thing as live video. Facebook didn't even have that. So I don't remember, I think it was maybe 2017 that Facebook introduced live video. And at first, which is so funny, and I have to tell this part, I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not.
But you
There,
are like you are a try out the new thing
I
every
will.
time. And
Yes.
I'm only a few years older than you, but like I just love that about you because you're always like, "Oh, that's a new thing. I'm just going to try it."
Yeah.
Like no hesitation.
And but I did hesitate on this, and I have to say because what people won't understand unless you knew me before is I was so scared of public speaking and being in front of a camera. That was probably my biggest fear besides snakes. Um, just debilitating fear. And so I started hearing about live video and how, oh, get in front of your people like that. And I was like, oh, I'm doing fine writing. They can see me behind my writing. They don't have to see my face, blah, blah, blah. And then after kind of saying, I'm not doing that, I'm like, I'm going to try it. Yes, I am. Because I am. I'm somebody that will try to pave the way and will start new things. And I was like, I'm going to do it scared. And which is now my motto for everything, do it scared. But at the time, I was so scared. It was my biggest fear, literally. But I made a post on Facebook and I said, for accountability, and I said, I'm going live at whatever time it was that day. Join me live. I'm going to make a bow. And I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be like. Oh my gosh, I was so scared. I was like hyperventilating over the sink in my bathroom. I was like, what have I done? Why am I doing this? Try to talk myself out of it. And at that point in time, we were living in a single wide mobile home on our land in the country because we were going to build a house. And so we had moved this single wide out there while we started the building process. Ended up being a 3-year process to clear out our land and do all that. And I was about a little over a year into the blogging process. So I was like, I'll just blog about being in the trailer, what we fix up on a deep budget because we weren't going to spend anything. We were putting it all towards the house. So I was already in that process. I was in this trailer. I didn't have any pretty place to go live. I mean, I had fixed it up as cute as I could. I had a fluorescent light over my head, one little janky window, and a thing of pins, like literally like a cup with pins sticking out
Yeah.
that I could stick my
Yeah.
phone in. That's what I had. And I was like, I'm going live and I'm going to just share. And my kitchen refrigerator was right by my little janky desk that I had like a wood piece over. It was nothing fancy. It was all just kind of ghetto. I don't know. But I was like, I'm doing it. And I went live that day and I did it scared. I showed them how to make a bow, which is kind of the famous refab bow or whatever. And it went really well. And I was like, that wasn't so bad. And so I was like, I'm going to do that again. And so a few days later, I went live again. And I just started going live and showing up. Just me. Whether it was me talking about what we talked about in church that day and how it related to me and how I thought people might want to hear, what I got out of it, to, hey, I'm in Hobby Lobby. Look what they've got today that's 50% off. This is what I'm going to use it for. And talking to them or showing a bow or showing a craft or showing how I decorate a space. I just started showing up. That was the main thing. I started showing up. And what I saw through that was the connection that I made with the people that had chosen to follow me because I was suddenly real to them. Like we were starting to create relationships with each other. And I didn't know what to expect going live, but what I saw and what happened was it was transforming everything about my business because now I wasn't just this page that would send you to a link to read the blog. It was this person, and it was really truly a community. It was suddenly starting to grow in this community of people that started loving me. I was very authentic. Sometimes this happened more often than I want to admit. My phone would fall out of my pins and I'd be like, hold on, I'll be right back. Like, sorry, my phone fell. And I'd be like, I'm still here,
And I
and
mean,
it just related to the people,
well, I was gonna say honestly, in the couple years that we've known each other, I have been so I mean, it's a mixture of inspired slash kicked in the pants. Like to be like, oh, Brooke, she's just so good at being consistently on there, whether you're in carpool or you're talking about your favorite dessert at the fast food restaurant or you're talking about, what's coming out with your business. It's just
yeah.
I do believe that every business owner would be more successful if we took it seriously to be
Hmm.
on there with our people as a personal
Yes.
brand on a personal
Hmm.
level, just really letting them know who we are
Hmm.
because you always want to shop with people you know, like, and trust.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, oh, it's weird, but people do want to know, like, oh, you take your dog to get groomed on Tuesdays because it's the best day, or
Yeah. Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
And I mean, some people don't care, and that's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah, they
But
don't have to
that's totally
watch.
fine.
Yeah.
But some people are really fascinated by the business tips slash the, you know, what
Just the
you're,
life.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
just the
the
life in general. Yeah, for
daily life
sure.
because I don't know why. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of science behind it, but I do feel like, people aren't as connected relationally sometimes as they used to be, when we were growing up.
Mhm.
So maybe it makes them feel like they're connected
I
relationally,
think it is. I think they
like they have
do.
a friend, like
Mhm.
they have a friend, you know?
I think that's 100% true. And what I've seen through the years, um, because I think it was in 2017. Yeah, it was in 2017 that I started going live. So that was 8 years ago. So through those 8 years, what I've seen the most, obviously, I've seen dramatic growth in my business because of it. But the relationships, like I've made true, lasting relationships with people that I've only met through social media, that they maybe have followed me for a long time or I followed them or we just connected in that way and then one day we meet in person and it's like this is a real friendship that is cultivated through this environment. And people will tell me every day, like, watching you help me get through my cancer journey, like I would turn you on during chemo because you always lifted my spirits. I cannot tell you how many stories like that I've heard. Or when my mom was going through her sickness, we would watch you together because you brought us together. Like we had both loved you. And so that's something we could do together. And it was just like, that was not what I expected when I started going live. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. But that's what came from it, is these relationships were truly built and cultivated, and this community came together for this commonality of we just love creative stuff. I'm a person of faith, so a lot of my community, not everybody, but a lot of them resonated with me on that level. So that faith aspect came into it. Um, I'm a hoot, I guess. Like you never know what I might say or do.
Yeah,
So like that's
you
something.
are always gonna catch us off
So
guard with one of your
I'm
sayings.
just gonna be me, and I think that resonated with people because in today's world with reality TV, that's not much reality. It's not true, authentic reality. And people just want real. They want raw. They want to feel connected. And like you said, like when you can go live or when you can show up in your stories and videos or whatever it is in that way that you're face to camera and you're to your people, they literally feel like they know you. And so if you do have something to sell or you do offer something, you're the one top of mind because they're like they're buying from a friend. You've become their friend.
Totally.
And, I didn't set out with that intention. That's just what naturally happened and what I've seen happen for so many people that show up in that way.
Well, I just want to say, like, it's crazy to think only 8 years ago you started to go live and, a couple people watching or whatever it was at the
Mhm.
beginning. And then 2 days ago, you just decided to go live on my patio out here. And last night when we went to bed, you said, Mindy, that live already has how many views?
Last night it was at close to 110,000 views in like a day and a half.
110,000 views. And what was it? The other stat? Was it comments or something?
It had almost 4,000 comments and almost 2,000 shares that one live did. So it's crazy.
It's crazy. And so it's like that is what 8 years of consistency and
Mhm.
people getting to know you and feeling like they're your friend or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like they show up.
Yeah, they'll
They
show
show
up.
up.
Mhm.
It's amazing, Brooke.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
let's just fast forward into the journey. We obviously know it's just been so cool because, again, people started to say, Hey, Brooke, can you also help us with this? And so
Mhm.
you opened a whole boutique. And I mean,
Mhm.
she has a 20,000 square foot warehouse and she is incredible online business with all the people saying, Hey, where'd you get those earrings? And then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to have a boutique now. And it's huge and epic. And she has this great team. And somewhere along the line, Brandon joined you in business
Yes.
and stopped working.
Mhm.
I don't really like the words retire your
Yeah.
husband because honestly, both of our husbands
Right.
didn't retire at all. If
Right. No.
anything, they work more than they ever
Yes,
have.
absolutely.
But now they're full time in the business with us.
Mhm.
And I just want to know, like, how did that happen? Was that like
Yeah.
he's just like, hey, we need to keep hiring people. I might as well join, or what?
No, that's not how it happened. It is such a God thing. Every single part of this journey has been a God thing. From me being told no to that job, because if I'd been told yes, I would have stayed in that forever and enjoyed that journey and would probably been happy and whatever. But from being told no to that, from the infertility, from the mini stroke, from every single thing, it was God paving the way for what He wanted to happen and was setting little no's in my past so that this bigger yes would come. And that's the same thing that happened with Brandon. So the boutique, me going live, I was showing up. I'm like, hey, it's Brooke with Refab, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, where'd you get those earrings? I could be doing a craft and they're asking about my earrings, my shirt. And I'm just like, oh, I got it from wherever. I could never give them an answer really, or I could give them an answer, but they can find it, they may not. It may have been 5 years ago, or I could give an affiliate link and get like 1% back if they still had it. And so I was like understanding and listening that like they were asking for something, and I could serve them in a different way by being able to provide that for them in that setting. It was never planned out. It just was literally listening to the people. So I started that, and I told him I was like, I think we need to start a boutique. And so I did in 2018, in May of 2018, started the Refabbed store, is what it was called at first. And it was all drop ship. And literally, and listen, everybody knows this. I mean, it was very transparent. Everything was drop shipped from China because I was like, I don't want a store. I don't want like that. And everybody knew this is coming from overseas. I was super transparent. You'll get it in 5 to 8 weeks. And this was at the days of Amazon Prime. Like, why it was working makes no sense but it does because God was in it and he's going to make sure it makes a way. So we started out drop shipping from China. Okay? And I would tell people, you can get this shirt. And I started a Shopify by myself. I figured it out. I started the website. Nobody helped me. And I made my first sale of like $2 and something, because when you're doing the drop ship, you don't touch the product. It comes directly from the manufacturer to your door. So, and I've been very transparent about that from the beginning, that that's what we were doing. And people still wanted it. And they started buying and they started buying and they started buying. And I'm like, holy cow. And it would show up at their house 5 to 7 weeks later in a box that looked like a bomb, like no branding. I'm dead serious. Nothing special about this, but I was getting my feet wet to see, do people really want what
What
I'm
I'm
showing, or
wearing.
is it just they're just asking? Like, I was getting my feet wet, and it was working. So from May to July, I was doing this, and this back end work was like, oh my gosh, placing all these orders and running all this. I was like, I'm like overwhelmed. Like, I was getting so many orders. And even though I wasn't touching it, I still had to place the orders and do all this back end stuff. And in July, I believe it was, Brandon was out in the garage helping somebody move. I think it was like a washer or a dryer. And the other person like kind of let go and it dropped, and he was left with all of it, and he tore his bicep tendon. And so he had to be out of work. I can't remember if it was 12 or 16 weeks, because he had to have surgery and all this stuff.
Wow.
So during that time, and it was right before we had a really big event, a live event for my, we did a refab live. We used to do these crafting lives, and it was my very first one. It was right before that. That was going to be in August. This was in September. So he had to have surgery. He couldn't work. He was a lineman, an electric lineman, journeyman lineman, had a great job, but it was a dangerous job too. But he was like, okay, well, I'll help you with this back end stuff while I'm home, and I'll help you get ready for this live event. And it was a very busy time. So he, in the midst of having this bicep tendon tour and surgery, he started helping me with the boutique stuff or the store stuff. And he started doing all that on the back end. And we started working together on that. And it was like a huge lift to me, because I still had these kids at home and running this and doing this.
Yeah.
Social media was starting to grow. And and then he helped me with the event, and he was there with me through that. He saw that firsthand. And as his 16 weeks were coming to an end, we were like really seeing like we can work together, because you never know if you can work with your spouse or not in that kind of way. Doesn't matter how much you love that person, you don't always have that
Connection ability.
ability to do
And
that.
like tolerance
Yes,
level.
exactly. And I didn't know if we would. He didn't know if we would, because we're both strong-willed people, but we were working together like really well. We complemented each other with our strengths and our weaknesses. And so at the end of that 16 weeks, it was kind of like, this could be a thing where like you could come and kind of, because we could see the boutique was just like, it was still drop ship, but it was like insane how amazing it was going. And I really will say 100% that it was not the product. It was the personal connection, and it was that they were buying from somebody they loved. They could go get that shirt anywhere, but they loved me. I had connected with them. They wanted to buy from us, so they were. And so we started seeing that, and so we were getting towards the end of that year in 2018, and we were like, what if you came home? Never dreamed this could even be a topic of conversation. And he's like, let's set aside like 3 to 6 months of my income, only living on what the business is doing, to see if that's even possible. And in like January of that year, it was like we were able to do that. And it was like, there's no question, like, we've got to get you home, because what can we do together, you know? And so in January of that year, we stopped drop ship. That was not the model. We're like, we don't want to do this
Not
anymore.
long term,
We,
anyways.
we did not. This was just us getting our feet wet to see if this was feasible. And we're like, we're going all in on the normal wholesale retail, have the inventory, but we knew we wanted to keep it online. We still didn't want a physical storefront. And so we dropped that, went straight to this model. Still didn't have any employees at the time. Hired somebody just to help me with some housework, because I was just like drowning. But that was all she did. And then she kind of gradually started helping with a little bit of stuff with inventory when we started getting it. And it was just using cash flow, like, you know, buying
Make a
what we
little buy.
could.
Make
Yeah,
a
we
little
went
buy.
like we went off and did this huge business loan and did all this like it was just what you could at the time. And then in May of that next year, like just a few months later, he put in his resignation.
Looking for the perfect vacation spot to disconnect from everything, put your feet in the softest sand, and enjoy a fresh, renovated 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhouse right on the beach in my favorite place in the world? Well, 30A is situated in the panhandle of Florida, and I'd love for you to check out Something Blue 30A on Instagram and make it the perfect place for your next vacation.
I'll tell you, like, nobody understood what I was doing from home. Nobody understood this business. They thought I was just sitting at the table making fun little paper crafts and just having fun. Nobody understood any part of anything. And so I was already getting talked about through town. Like, what is she doing? Like, she left that job and it doesn't make
And
any sense.
now,
And then now all of a sudden, he, who has one of the best jobs in town, is coming home with her. Like, are they crazy? They're building this house or living in this trailer. Like, I mean, we had no room. And now he's going to come home and what are they doing? And got talked about a lot. People were just so curious. They didn't understand. But he came home and he's been the driving force behind like what has grown the boutique to what it is today because it was he just had a different skill set. I'm a visionary. I can sell, I can be live, I can talk, I can be like that face. But behind the scenes, all the
he's
other business stuff,
operation.
he's knowing how to do all that. And so us together, like, just made it go
Through the
through the
roof.
roof. And
So
it's
what have
amazing.
you learned about working with your spouse that you think could maybe be helpful for our listeners
Mhm.
about like, hey, here's some tips that I would say working with your spouse, here's some things that have helped us work better together.
Yeah. I think it's knowing and understanding that you're two completely different people with different skill sets and being willing to let them walk in their skill set and you be willing to walk in your skill set. And, I don't know the best way to word this, but it's like I have specific strengths that I'm very good at that are not necessarily what he's good at. He has things that he's good at that I'm not. And I've got to be willing to understand that what I'm good at, he's not, and I can't expect him to be good at that. But I've got to walk in that myself. And I've got to allow him to walk in what he's good at without me trying to micromanage it and make it what I want it to be. And when there's something that he has a weakness in, not nitpicking that and trying to make that a strength for him when it's not naturally a strength, but it is for me. So that's where I can step in and build him up in that area, and like so many times it's kind of like the love languages, the 5 love languages. We try to love others in what our love language is, but that's not their love language. And so I think it's the same in business, knowing where they operate at their fullest and where they operate at their best capacity, and us just fueling them in that and allowing them to walk in that as boldly and as efficiently as they can without me trying to make him more like me. Like letting him be him in his role and him letting me be me in my role because we're so different. I'm creative, I'm spontaneous, I'm a little bit of chaos. I'm not going to ever have like everything in specific order. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm coming up with new ideas every single day, and that is not him. But he can't quench that in me because it's who I am and it's what's making some of this stuff what it is. But I can't try to make him be more like that because he's not going to be like that. That's not his personality. He's going to be like, that's great, but let's figure out how to make this realistically work, and let's figure out like the money part and what makes sense for this. I'm like, no, let's do this. Let's go here. We can do this now. He's like, hold on. You haven't even settled on this yet. And
Does that sound like me and Jordan or
and him
what?
not, yeah, and him not quenching that, but then me not getting frustrated and irritated at him that he needs to rein me back sometimes to understand more the realistic side of things. Like I think that is one of the biggest things that hinder a lot of couples from being able to work effectively together is you want that person to be like you both ways. And that's, you don't want them to be like you. That's what's complementing each other and making this partnership work, is you've got different strengths and different weaknesses that work together beautifully. And when you let them walk in that, then you're literally side by side reaching the same goal, and you're not like stepping over each other all the time.
And something I think, just in the length of time both of us have been in business, that we just hit on the other day at the kitchen table having coffee was, a lot of people are like, oh, you have to have boundaries about like when you talk about work and when
Mhm.
you don't talk about work and stuff like that. But the longer I've been doing this, like, I don't actually think that's really practical.
Mm-mm.
Like, you know, of course, it'd be nice if we were just 9 to 5 and can check out, but
Right.
being business owners, it's 24
Realistically,
7. It's
yeah.
24/7. So, I was doing payroll before we left for the day,
Right.
and he was taking a business call, had to respond to an email.
Mhm.
But the reality is like, we're just so thankful, all of us, that we get to
Right.
do what we're passionate about. But
Exactly.
it's doesn't stop. Like, it doesn't stop. And
No.
so there's no boundaries, I should say, for me and Jordan. There isn't, for like, oh, you can't talk to me about business right now. It's like,
Exactly.
it's just, you have to realize, okay, if you're married and this is your primary source of income, and this business runs on our collaboration, and you just have to let them know something right now. It's
Mhm.
not like you're ever on or off the clock. It's
Right.
just like, now's the
That's
time.
very true.
And so it is going to bleed into a closet conversation that might bleed into the laptop comes out at
Mhm.
midnight to get something done.
Yep.
But it is also, we're getting to do what we love.
Exactly. And we've got a
So
lot of freedom in that as well. So, yes, like you said, the laptop may come out at midnight, or before you go on a family rafting trip, you may have to do a quick payroll for 30 minutes or whatever. But that flexibility that comes along with that, you're willing to make those little sacrifices, or be like, hey, we got to have this conversation real quick because this team member, like, this is going on. We've got to address this right now, or whatever it is that comes along. You've got to be willing to know that it's not like it used to be, where you clock in at 7 o'clock, out at 4:30, and you never think about that place again. You're no longer an employee. It's on your mind all
all the
the
time.
time, and you
And
can't escape that. And to really think that you're going to, it's just not realistic. So you've got to understand that, like you said, going into it, that this is the life that you've chosen, and you kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it, because it's every part of you, and your family's a part of that too. And you're
mhm,
showing them what it's like to run a business as a couple, and be married, and be able to work through the hard times as a business partner and everything else too. And that's not easy, but it's so fulfilling, to get to do what you love every single day,
mhm.
like, and get to do it. A lot of it that I can do from anywhere. And so I was live out there. That was work. It didn't feel like work. It was fun. And if I wanted to write a blog today at your house, then that's what I'd do on my laptop. Like, you, you don't have to be in an office setting. And it's really fun, but it's also, like you said, I think you have to fully understand going into
It's
that what it
all in.
entails.
It's not easy. It sounds really glamorous, but like,
Sounds super
when I
glamorous.
took a day off, I was still working on my one
Yes.
day off that week, and then the
Mhm.
6 other days I was working.
Right, exactly.
So but especially when it becomes the spouse joins,
Yes.
it's like, okay, now we're always working.
Yes. Your mind
But
never stops.
your mind never stops. But it is something you're passionate about. However, like I said, the boundaries more come from, okay, how do we still show up for our kids,
Mhm.
even though like we both work all the time? Okay,
Right.
how do we show up for our kids? How do we show up for each other? What are our personal needs, and how are they being met? Like, we don't ever have the traditional date night every week that
Mhm.
some people talk about.
Mhm.
We put it where it works that week. We're like,
Yes.
hey, could we go to breakfast on Friday morning? Would
Mhm.
that work on your schedule, my schedule? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Or can we go on a walk and like get our walking in, but also
Right.
talk and catch up?
Mhm.
So it's just like having to be very creative on where you put it all together,
Yes.
because you got to answer to the income opportunities when those
Right.
come, and
Mhm.
those don't always allow you to have your traditional schedule that you
Exactly.
would maybe have if you had a
Right.
normal job. So,
Yes.
it's
Time
tricky.
blocking and intentionality. I mean, intentionality, basically everything you said just boils down to intentionality. You have to
100%.
be so intentional with your time, with your kids, with your spouse. And it's just like, and your kids start to understand, from that perspective, they understand you're not at this 9 to 5, that when you come home, you're done with work. Like, they understand that that's kind of just a part of life, and they start to realize that. But then it's also times it's like, okay, we're going to be going to the water park today. Just the other day we went to the water park. My phone was in my bag. I was not on it all day. I'd let Brandon know, listen, if you need to text me, I'll check it a couple times throughout the day and I can respond, but I'm kind of off the grid today. I'm with the kids at the water park. It took me like 2 weeks to plan that day, that this was be the day I could go to the water park with them all day. I had to make sure I wasn't playing for any lives, any meetings, moving things around, to be so intentional about this day. I'm off for these hours to go to the water park. But then when I get home at 5 o'clock that night, I may have a couple hours that I have to catch up on things. But it was because I took that time off and I was intentional to be with the kids. I was not going to do that from the water park.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the stuff you have to move around and just be so, you can't just
So
up and
intentional.
go one day. Like, you have to make sure you're so intentional with every minute of your day so that they get your full presence, any member of your family, your spouse or your kids, during that
When they
time
need it. Mm-hmm.
when they need it. And they're always the top priority. If there is something that happens that they truly need me, and I know you're the same with your family because I've watched it, then that meeting that was scheduled, it can wait. It can be changed. That is one of the bonuses of being the boss. You can change things. Obviously, that's not something we just go and do at every whim, but like, those things can be changed. And our kids, both, all of our kids, realize that they are the top priority, but they also realize this is our income, this is our career, this is what provides. And so they've had to sacrifice and also be willing to understand all that too. And I think there's that delicate boundary there too, of making sure you're present, but also, I don't know, it's just not
It's just a
easy, but
balance.
it's
That's
a
what I was
lot
gonna
of
say.
balance.
It sounds really glamorous to people that are like, "Oh, I'd like that flexibility."
Mhm.
But what I guess I'm trying to say is like, but it takes a lot of grit. It
It
takes a lot
does.
of grit because it's discipline that says, "Okay, if I choose to take this 4 hours to go do this, then it's going to require me to sit down tonight later when I don't feel like it and I'm
Mhm.
tired and most people are checking out
Right.
and I'm going to get stuff done."
Exactly.
It's a really tricky balance. And I do have an episode that's pretty good. I just thought of this where I interview Bear, my oldest, about what is it like having a working mom. And it's a really good episode
I need to
because
watch that
it's just
episode.
so cool to hear from his perspective,
Mhm.
one of our kids. Like, what does it look like and how is it hard, but also is it good? Like, how do you feel about
Right.
it? And so he gave us a lot of honest thoughts around it, and it was good to hear. But I would say overall, I think our kids, if they see us model family first, but also really going for it, it's inspiring to them.
Mhm.
They said it's really they're proud of the
Mhm.
fact that their parents are
Mhm.
entrepreneurs. They're proud that their parents or even just work in a career that they love.
Right.
Because I have a lot of friends that just have amazing jobs that they
Right.
love, and that's just as amazing.
Oh,
That's just as
absolutely.
amazing.
Yes. Not
But
everybody needs to be an
I
entrepreneur.
actually, they say, what is it, like 4% of
Oh
people are
gosh.
built to be the entrepreneur type. So
Mhm.
not everybody should be. But what I'm really proud of is that there are kids out there that are going to see the hard work of their parents and not resent them for working, but see them as like inspirational
Right.
for going to
Yes.
work and having a purpose and really providing for their family.
Mhm.
As
Absolutely.
long as you're at the things that matter most to them. So I
Exactly.
miss things. To be totally honest, I do miss things that my kids are involved in. I'm not at 100% of everything,
Mhm.
but what I do, Brooke, is I ask my kids, okay, like let's look at the week. Like, what's the most important things that I'm at for you this
Mhm.
week? And they tell me the most important things, and I'm at those things.
Yes.
And so it's like, okay, I might find out that, oh, this is just a little thing where I thought it was a big deal to come to.
Right.
And they're like,
Like, yeah,
no,
we don't
not
care
a big
about
deal.
that. Yeah.
And then I'm like, thank you for telling me. And then,
Mhm.
Jordan and I can really map out.
It's that open communication that you've got with your kids, where they are fully available to tell you anything that is on their mind and their heart, and they feel like they can tell you those things,
Mm-hmm.
because your
It's,
kids are very, very good at that, and mine are too, honestly.
oh, yeah, they're
Like,
great.
they don't mind telling me, like, my feelings are hurt. If you're not going to be here, this really bothers me. Is there any way you can change this because this matters to me? And like, I'm glad they feel confident to tell me those things, and yours will tell you those things because you're like, okay,
Mm,
that matters to me. Let me
okay.
change this around if I can.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hard thing is, I'm so sorry you feel that way, and there's nothing I can do in this situation to change this. Like, I just have to do this because this is my responsibility and whatever. And that's always hard. But for the most part, a lot of things can be shifted sometimes to make those things happen. But the open communication and the availability that they feel to be able to tell us those things is key. And I've seen a lot of parents not have that availability with their kids where they feel open to even tell them. And then that's where I start seeing the big disconnect because the parents weren't available to be like, just tell me how you really feel about
Yeah.
this. Did this really bother you? Will this bother you if I'm not here or whatever? And they just don't feel comfortable sharing that with them. And so I think I can pat ourselves on the back in this area. There's a lot of things I can't pat myself on the back, so I'm like, I'm still a work in progress. But this one area, I do feel like we've done a good job of like making sure our kids feel completely comfortable sharing with us how they feel about things like that. Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like you said, we want to be there for all the things that matter the most. And
Absolutely.
there's always going to be parts of business that I feel like I need to say this too, and I know you would agree with this, that you are in that grind mode and you are trying to build something from scratch. And there's that, it's so much more than it is even now. Like when you're in that like hustle mode where it's like, this has to work, we got to get this off the ground. And there's more sacrifices at that point in a different level that you're having to make to get it to where it needs to be. Because, like you said earlier, so many people stop before you get there. And so we've finally gotten past that point now, but that was because of all the time and effort and consistency and like long days and nights where we did have to miss some things or we did have to um miss some things being sleep, or just something like that to make things get done. And then now on the other side of it where things are going smoothly, but it's still just as much work, it just looks different. We can, like, I'm at a point now that I'm not in the grinding stage anymore. I've got things kind of running well, and I can take a little more time than I could take before, where I'm more,
Now you're
even way
choosy
more, I'm
about, yeah.
I'm 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 allowing more margin in my days than I was able to allow earlier, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I want to wrap up with this topic that we've talked about, the last couple of years, which is probably kind of why we became friends. And that's just the friendship
Mm,
element of life being in your 40s, but the last 15 years, or for me, 18 years, we've been grinding. We have been trying to build something pretty amazing. We've been having babies and trying to like still be with our family when we're not working, and there's been very limited time for friendship.
mhm,
I mean, it's like you have to be very, back to your word, intentional to have the friendship. But for me anyways, it's been also like where I didn't always feel like I was able to connect. I felt a
mhm,
little bit odd when I'd go to like the mom things because maybe I'm the working mom and then stay at home
mhm,
moms, or um, I would want to volunteer at something in school, but nobody really felt like that was normal because let's say I was once a month and they were every day, and I
mhm.
felt out of
Yeah,
the loop
out
of
of the
things.
loop.
There's been seasons where I weren't invited to things because locally,
Mhm.
because they would just assume I'm busy. And I was sad about that because I was like, well, I am busy, but I'd still like to be invited to try to come, if
Right.
I could
Have the
have the
opportunity.
opportunity if I can. Um, and also there's been the place of feeling misunderstood, of like nobody really understands why I'm working so hard towards this dream, or why I have a goal, or what makes it exciting for me to work on this project, because to them that seems stupid.
Right.
So I would love to hear how friendship has gone for you, but just for everybody to hear, the way I met Brooke was because it was almost 3 years ago now. I was feeling lonely in the sense of I have good friends. I totally do. I'm so thankful for them. But there was a smaller group of them, and I did not have friends that understood the pressures of the level of business that I had.
Mhm.
So when you grow your business, you start to have a certain, you get to a certain level where, I mean, I had a team of 20 people, a lot of requirements to, hit sales numbers and marketing goals, and just a lot of pressure,
Oh yeah, the pressure.
And I was feeling like I don't know anyone else that's a, a Christian working mom with a whole company, or now four companies on her shoulders. And I felt so like, am I the only one? Is this so weird that I'm going after this dream while raising kids and
Mhm.
thinking it's possible to do this? And so I joined a mastermind like 3 years ago. And it's where you and I were put in the same small group inside the mastermind.
Yes.
And in that small group, there's about 8 of us, all in the same shoes, the same age, the same season of
Mhm.
life, all in different parts of the country, which was interesting to see. I had to go out of my neighborhood to
Mhm.
find this, and that's okay for people to know. It took really taking a leap of faith to be
Mhm.
like, could I maybe find someone else, because I feel unrelatable. Like,
Yes.
I could relate with people about my faith, I could relate with people about my parenting, I could relate with people at school, football moms, all the things, but no one really understood the circle of the
Mhm.
weight that I was feeling with having the companies too.
Yes.
And then also with Jordan additionally joining the companies. It was just such a unique avatar of a
Yes.
person.
Yes.
And so it's been lonely, but until I
Mhm.
stepped up and said, okay, hey, is there anybody else like me out there?
Mhm.
And I just want you to talk about that because I feel
Yeah.
like you could relate too.
Oh yeah.
And it's been challenging over the years to build relationships because we are maybe different, And a lot of moms, I love it. They're able to stay at home, and that's cool. And I do think that is such a high calling.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't remember who says the quote, maybe Mother Teresa, don't quote me on that. But if you want to go change the world, go home and take care of your family, right?
Mhm.
So that is the number one. But I also feel inside of me there's just this big, just just like passion to go do this
Mhm.
business thing,
Mhm.
and I can't just ignore it.
Mhm.
And so I feel
And
unique
that's
in
your
that.
ministry too. Like, so yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So friendship, talk about it, Brooke. How do you feel?
Hmm.
All these
Yeah.
years, like, where does it bring you today? Where are you settled in your friendship, journey? And maybe some cautionary tales in the sense of people that are just starting out, like, prepare them, even though they think, oh, my friendships will never change, all the things will stay the same. Like,
Mm,
let's be real with them
yeah.
about it changing.
So the friendship component of all this, I think, is almost possibly the hardest of all of them for me, anyway. Um, you know, as you were talking, I was like, so much of everything you said is everything is true. Every single thing you said. But so much of it boils down to perception of other people, what they perceive of you. And really that's what life always is. It doesn't matter if you're a business owner or not. We live life with a perception of somebody else. And what our perception is our reality for that person. And that's just 100% the way it is. And perception is not always reality. In fact, it very rarely is. And so, as soon as you start a business and you start moving forward with that, and you're grinding and you're trying to build something, you're doing something outside of the norm that everybody else knows, you start to be perceived as something different. Like you're automatically perceived that you've changed. You're automatically perceived that you have a different mindset than you had before. Like everything that people see in you, what I've noticed and seen to be true in pretty much everybody that does what we do from the outside looking in. Oh, well, she changed. When my business got bigger and things started happening, and we were able to build our house, or we were able to go on a trip that we couldn't go on before, nothing about me as a person ever changed. I was the exact same person I always was. Had the same personality. What you see on video is me in real life. You can attest to that. Anybody can. I know that to be 100% true. But some of the friendships that I had leading into that, they started to not relate to me anymore. They thought they couldn't relate to me anymore, so they stopped trying, or they started perceiving me as being something different. And even the outside community, or my community, was just like, oh, they've changed. They've gotten too big for their britches. They've done this. And I'm like, you've not even spoken to us. You stopped talking to us. Like, there was just this perception that I was like, what you're perceiving is not even true. You're just placing that on me because that's how you're seeing it through your lens. And some of those friendships, I think friendship is sometimes for a season or for a reason or for whatever, and they're always for different times in life, and some of them are forever. And so through the season of starting a business and growing and doing all that, some people were not meant to make it through to that next season. They weren't made to grow with you, and I had to see that and be willing to let that go. But the hardest part was just knowing that people immediately started thinking they could not relate to me anymore, but they didn't even try. And that was something I saw in my own life, but that's also been stuff I've seen in other friends' lives. And it's like that, it was so sad to me. I just started noticing that people were just kind of gradually falling back. Like they didn't, certain friends, and I definitely had some that still tried to be close and I was still pouring into them. But what I noticed is they were just like, when I would try to talk to them, they did not understand anything that I was trying to talk about because my life had changed. I was not the same 9 to 5. I couldn't relate in that way anymore because that was not my life anymore. It was 28 hours a day. It's like there was
Mhm.
no time that I was like clocking in and out. And if I would try to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed about this," or "I feel stressed," it was like, "Really? You're just home all day. Like you just get to play with your kids and like make crafts. Like how are you stressed?" Like people would tell me that, and I could tell like they don't get it. Like their perception is that I'm doing this. They do not understand. And it would hurt my feelings, and I would be
Well, did you
like,
ever feel like you had to withhold after that?
"Yes,
Like I felt that all the
yes,
time. Like I could never
yes,
celebrate a win or I
never."
could never talk about like a big accomplishment because of when it was the baby stuff to start, it was like already uncomfortable for them.
Mhm.
So it was like very tricky to be able to be like, "Oh my gosh, we just finally broke the algorithm and we
Yeah.
had booked extra appointments because
Mhm.
da da da." You
Yes.
know,
Yes, I found it very difficult. I found it um I almost found like there was a lot of people in life that were much more prone to be with me in the hard times than were prone to be with me in the good times. They were happy to kind of walk alongside of me if they thought I was struggling through something. But if they thought I was winning in something, they weren't there. They weren't clapping. And I was like, where is a circle of people that will actually, because I'm not like that. I've never been like that, ever. Even before I started a business, I genuinely felt happy for other people that were doing well in life, even if that was not in the phase that I was in. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. When I struggled with infertility for 4 years and had that miscarriage with twins and all that happened, that was hard. And both of my sister in laws were having babies at the time, and all these other people around me having babies, but I genuinely felt happy for other people. And in even in their season where it was not my season. And so here I was in this new season, and I felt like it was very, very, very difficult. And especially as I kept growing, it became even increasingly more difficult to find people in my life that I felt like understood and really wanted me to win as a person. And where I started seeing the biggest cheers were from the online community of people that I did not personally know. They were happy for me. That's where I received encouragement. That's where I received like uh, that is where I literally, and I tell my online community this all the time, my followers, I'm like, you helped me through some of the toughest times in my growth because that's where I was finding like the encouragement to keep going because it was not local people. Sometimes it was not family. As much as they loved me for Brooke and this and that, but I didn't always feel like they understood or saw the wins as a big deal like I did. It was just different. It's hard to explain, and I found it very, very hard to find friendships in that. And I felt like I was losing people that I had been close to because they just did not feel like they could relate to me anymore. And not that I always wanted to sit around and talk about my wins, obviously,
Yeah.
but even
I
like
mean,
the
I just
struggles, they didn't understand the struggles either. And it felt like that's a struggle for you that Facebook went down for 8 hours today. Well, yes, I lost this much in sales because I couldn't go live and do my live sale today. So we may have lost X amount of money, but it's like, oh, you didn't get to get on and chat, like, yeah, you love to see yourself talk. Like, there were comments like that that I'm like, you just don't get it at all, and it's hurtful, so you stop sharing. And so it's like you can't share the hard times anymore because those hard times, they're not perceived as hard times. Well, you're not dealing with what I'm dealing with, so oh, please complain a little bit more that you get to be home with your family and go blah blah blah. None of that. Like, I just felt like everything was unrelatable.
it's just a different pressure. It's just a different pressure, and everybody has pressure.
Right.
And I would say, regardless of what your pressures are, it is important to have friends that you can talk to about
Mhm.
them,
Yes.
because it's I'm not even saying one's worse or less or more,
Right.
but
They have to
if you're going to
understand that
homeschool your
pressure.
kids, you're going to have certain kind of pressures and stressors that I don't understand because I don't homeschool my kids.
Exactly.
And so you need to find homeschool moms
Exactly.
that can help you understand those pressures. If you are a business mom, then you got to find some business friends that understand the
And I didn't
pressures.
have that, and you didn't have that.
Right.
And now we do.
And now we do. I mean, to hit payroll and to do all the things, it's like you carry a different weight.
Hmm. You
And
do.
so, and I'm not saying again that one's harder or less than, but let's just say whoever you are,
Hmm.
if you are a unique, which all of us are, person carrying a unique kind of pressure, I would say one of the best, like, piece of advice for me to give you is just like find someone
Yeah.
else carrying those similar pressures so you don't feel like you're crazy,
Right.
because
Because it's a
otherwise
lonely road when
it
you
is
don't have those people.
very lonely. It is.
And and I'm very transparent about my journey, and I was so lonely. So, so, so lonely. And I've always been one that just carried a tight circle. I've never been one ever, even before business, that had this huge circle of people that I was just always hanging with. There was always 15 girls going out and do this. That was never me. I always had a close circle, just a smaller one. And I think that is fantastic. If you've got a big one, fantastic. If you've got a small one, fantastic. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I just always held few people. And so already having few and then feeling like there was practically nobody I connected to on that level. Like you said, I could still connect on other levels of certain parts of my life, but not as a whole. And, and it was through being in different masterminds. That's how I connected with people that have become just like you, some of my very closest friends, because you connect on every part of my life. Like, you understand the business part, the kid part, the marriage part. It's not just the kids that we relate to when we're at the ball game. It's not just the parenting part. It's all of them. And when you can make those connections with just a few choice people that get it from the whole circle, like, that is like the ultimate friendship.
Ultimate, ultimate. And it took both of us, stepping out of our state even
Right.
to
Yeah.
go to something, to like pay for something, to like make some of those connections.
Mhm.
And then it's up to you, to keep nurturing those
Mhm.
relationships. But it's like, man,
It was
that
intentionality. Once again, intentionality to do that. And like you said, one of my biggest pieces of advice would be, do not just wait for it to come to you, or do not just sit back and complain or feel sorry for yourself that you don't have what you need. That is a tendency, human nature, that we can fall into. But both of us probably felt those things. I
hmm
mean, I know I did. There were some times I had some big pity parties for myself, but you've got to be intentional to get out of your comfort zone and just literally make it happen. Like we went into these circles to be like, I'm going to step out when I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm nervous. I don't know anybody, but I know that I need these people in my life. Like I have to have that specific friendship and go make it happen and nurture it. And like you said, you're in Colorado, I'm in Kentucky. We're not close to each other in proximity, but proximity. But we're close to each other emotionally. We connect and we make it happen to see each other in person. And it's a sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
but it's intentional. And that's what you have to be in your relationship. So, like you said, no matter where you're at, you need to find
Your
those
people.
people.
Well, I was just thinking about both of us, how we've created communities, both of us. And we do have these in person events to continue to help people develop those friendships. And this year, Brooke, we're actually, for one of our community in person events, we're having a husband track for all the husbands of the wives in our community to
That's
connect.
awesome.
Because, I mean, just it kind of got inspired by a lot of our friendship
Mm-hmm.
and being like, oh, how cool that Jordan and Brandon can
Yeah.
like talk about so many of the same things,
Mm-hmm.
from
They can just relate on those,
you're just like,
on
oh
that
yeah, we
level.
have these powerhouse wives that are like in front of a camera
Mm-hmm.
and leading people and
Mm-hmm.
selling stuff at a boutique and all these things, and it's just so rare.
Mm-hmm.
And then to share also the common faith that we have is just it's been super cool. So like I said, it doesn't matter if you're a homeschool mom or you're a working mom or you're um whatever your hobbies or stressors are, it has been a game changer to find
Mm-hmm.
other people with those same exact stressors so
Yes.
you don't feel crazy.
Yep.
You don't feel like you're the only one.
Exactly.
And then also, I mean, man, the idea sharing of like, hey, this worked for me when I tried to get out of that situation, or this
Mm-hmm.
worked for me, and just being able to encourage each other, because usually our hard times don't come at the same time,
Exactly.
usually.
Yes.
And so, it's kind of neat because we kind of help carry each other when some
Mm-hmm.
people are going through a hard time, some people aren't. But
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have made it through. I can say this with 1000% certainty. Last year was one of the hardest years of my life. You know that. I mean, and like I said, I'm very transparent with my struggles too, because I never want to come across as like, oh, I got it all together. Everything's perfect. I absolutely don't. Nobody does. But last year was the hardest year probably I've ever had. And if it had not been for the friendships that I made inside the masterminds that I've been in the business communities that understand everything from every part, I would not have made it through, and neither would have Brandon. Like it was those people that lifted us up, checked on us. You know, we had one guy fly all the way from Oregon to Kentucky to be with us that we met through business, same mastermind actually. And like that literally stood beside us and walked the walk. Like didn't just talk the talk, I'll be there for you. I'm here for you if things happen. It was like things happen, bam, they're there. And finding those people, I don't know what I would have done through the years. I don't even know if I would have, if I had not been in these circles through the years and met these people, if I would have even been able to stay in business, because it literally just kept fueling me. Like it kept giving me the encouragement I needed on the times when I was like, okay, I am really struggling right now with this. And like having them walk alongside of me, you're just in a slump, you can do this. And me being able to do that for them when they were facing that. Like it's so important to find the right people in your corner and to nurture that
yeah,
and not take it for granted, because you know how hard it was to find. So you want to do your best to hold on to that and to, you know, be what you know they need and allow them to be what you need. And when they say, can I help you?
say
And
yes.
you need it, say
Uh
yes,
huh.
which is hard for a lot of us to do. But, we just can't do life alone, and we're not made to do life alone. So,
100%.
yeah.
Well, I already just mentioned it earlier in the episode, but people can find you and hear more about what you're doing at Refabbed, but it's
Yes.
re-fabbed.
Yep.
And
Don't
there's
forget the
so
dash.
many,
Yep.
yes, there's so many outlets in there that you can go follow along her beautiful story and also all the
Thank you.
creative things she does. Um, but you guys, if you want a resource that Brooke and I created after this episode, just to help you with your family, faith, friends, season of life as a working parent, definitely subscribe, follow along. but also click the link below so you can drop your email in there. We'll send you that free resource that we'd love to give you because it's going
Yes.
to be so beneficial
Yes.
for you and your family as you're navigating these just difficult seasons that we're very honest about and we're not going to
Very
hide.
honest.
But there's so much goodness in
So
these
much
seasons too.
beauty.
Like
So
so
much
much
beauty.
goodness. I wouldn't want any other path than where God brought me to
No.
today. I feel like
Mm-mm.
He's kind of taken all of my gifts, and I'm sure you feel this too,
Mhm.
and kind of created this perfect little, um, you know, epicenter of like
Mhm.
what we're able to
I
support
wouldn't
people
change
with.
anything.
So
Mm-mm.
definitely subscribe and share with your friends if you have
Yes.
working parents, working mom friends that you're like, hey, this would resonate for them a lot too.
Yes.
Definitely share it. But we're just so glad you guys joined us
Thank you
on today's
so
episode.
much.
And
Yes.
we'll see you next time at the Something New Show. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys.